We need to make some moves on this Cadillac. This is the 1969 Cadillac DeVille convertible I bought for my dad as a thank you for, well, everything. It didn't look horrible on the outside, from afar, but it didn't run. We've since replaced the fuel tank and the drive shaft that looked like a Twizzler, and found out why it wouldn't run.
Starter goes here, it needs a starter.
I was so confident in our progress. At the end of the last video I said, next video, I will be driving the Cadillac. Maybe, but we still gotta get this Caddy to run not just on a can of gas.
Okay.
So today we've got to figure out why it's not running off its own gas tank. We put a new used tank in there, but we can't move the car if it's just running off a can. And we need to get this thing moving so that Dad can take this thing for a drive before it gets to be freaking winter. First, we're going to blow compressed air through the fuel lines to see if there's any blockages not allowing fuel to be sucked up.
Taking off the fuel lines going up to the fuel pump.
Ooh, that's a bad angle of your bald spot, I'm sorry. All right, I'm ready. Yep. It's coming back. It's coming back. That's working. Now to see if the return line's blocked. Yeah, moderately, not as much as the other one. Yeah, not as much as the other one, but yes. Oh, that's why. So the lines aren't clogged then, though.
I think we put a little more gas in that tank.
We've only got about 5 gallons of gas in the new tank, whose capacity is 26 gallons. So maybe the fuel is still too little to be picked up by the, well, fuel pickup. We put a few more gallons in it, then pull off the fuel line from the carb to see if we're now getting gas up to here.
Ready?
But we've got a different issue first.
The battery not connected? I got no power. Nothing.
He was off.
He was off.
Our brand new battery's got
Nothing.
so I hook it up to the big charger, and finally...
Let's see if it does anything. That doesn't make sense.
Oh, I got lights now.
Now we can try to crank it.
There's no electronics to draw that battery.
Still not enough juice.
Well, from now on, we're going to have to disconnect the battery then, because something blew it.
We waited a bit for it to charge, cranked over the 472, and...
Yep, nothing. Nothing.
Fuel pump?
Oh, I think so.
All right, new fuel pump. Why is it so dirty? Oh. You gotta be kidding me, this thing is used. What the hell?
But there was more pleasant surprises, too.
Really? The f is this? Someone's dirty used gloves.
I had to special order this thing. A few days later, when the steam stopped pouring from my ears, our new pump was in, which means it's time to get the old pump out of the Caddy.
Always wear protection.
First, we remove the soft fuel lines, then unthread the hard fuel line that feeds the carburetor. There's just 2 bolts holding the fuel pump to the engine block, starting with the one up top, which looks fun.
Well, the first one was surprisingly easy. Just kidding.
The sweat beating off my face makes it even more enjoyable to hold onto these wrenches.
There's one. And there's number 2. This is gonna be fun.
Looks a little tight up there. Let's try a ratchet first.
Let's no to a ratchet.
We swapped to a wrench, but hardly needed it.
No one was surprisingly loose. Little odd.
But finally, the last bolt's out, meaning we can now pull off the fuel pump.
Come on, pump, you're free. And the pump is out. Oh, that's hot. Oh, my ass.
The excitement and joy of getting the fuel pump out outweighs the pain of burning my hands on the scorching pavement.
old pump, and this better be an actual new pump. Aha, new pump. So the new pump and the old pump look about the same.
They look the same, with one little discrepancy on the bottom, which could be an issue.
The size of this inlet and the size of this inlet, and they look different, don't they? Yep, this one's way bigger. But luckily, I have a solution, because what I read was that I can unthread this portion up here and just thread this one onto it. This is just the fuel hose inlet. So what I think I'm gonna do now is take this one out, thread that one on, if I can actually get this out.
This fuel hose inlet probably has never been off in the 55 years this car's existed, but it comes off, and I'm not sure that's a good thing.
On second thought, maybe I don't want to use this.
To compare, I'll pull the inlet off the new fuel pump to see if the old inlet even threads onto there, and it doesn't go on. It's different. So Steve came over to take a peek and point me in the right direction.
All right, I think we have our solution to our little fuel pump line problem. So here's what it is. So the reason we couldn't use the new fuel pump was because the fitting that was in here, this one fits because it's off the old pump, but the new pump was too big for this fitting. And I looked everywhere for an adapter to use this 5/16 fuel line with a 3/8. I needed a 5/16 to 3/8 adapter. Sorry, it's hot out. And I just could not find one. I looked everywhere, couldn't find one. So what I didn't realize was that when I unthreaded this, and this little doohickey came out, this is a fuel filter, and this is replaceable. I didn't know that, so shout out to Steve for teaching me that. So what I did is somehow dug through part numbers and found a replacement one of those. So instead of replacing the pump, we're gonna utilize the old pump just with a new filter. So right now I'm gonna put this new filter in, put on the new lines that I got, the new return line and input line, I believe it is. And then we hopefully should be good to put this back in the caddy.
The new filter looks just about the same as the 800-year-old dilapidated one that came from the old pump, so it's time to throw it in the new one. It just sets into the pump, and the threaded inlet portion holds it in place. Once it's in, we can put on the rubber fuel inlet and return lines, and now the pump's ready to go back in the caddy. It bolts right back in the same way it came out. Then I thread in the hard fuel line that feeds the carb, hook up the fuel inlet and return lines, and now we can see if this fuel pump's gonna pump. But unfortunately,
Nothing.
it's looking like our little ancient fuel filter wasn't the issue. That old pump just might be too tired, which means I can try the new pump, but not until I find either a new hard fuel line or the adapter I need to use the 5/16 fuel line with the new pump, which is threaded for a 3/8 line. And a few days later, I got lucky.
Quick shout out to the guys at Sanel Napa in Manchester. God, this is the second time now that I've come here for some odd fitting problem, and they've been able to help. So I have now an adapter that goes from 3/8 to 5/16 so that the fuel pump that I got will work. I don't have to return this one, order a new one. Man, feeling good. Let's get this thing in and run this Cadillac.
The new adapter fits perfect, but to get the fuel pump in, the hard line's got to be put on after the pump is mounted to the block. So I finagle the new pump into place, then attempt to thread on the fuel line with our new adapter, which was a tad difficult.
It's like the pipe's got to be bent a little.
That's what I was thinking.
But eventually, Dad got it in, and it was time to see if the new fuel pump sucks. In a good way. With the pump drawing from a can of gas, we cranked it up.
Yep, go ahead.
Nothing?
And with our brand new pump
feeding directly from a gas can, it still wasn't pumping fuel. No. Something's wrong. It just doesn't make sense. The pump is new, and it's only drawing fuel from a gas can right below it, not all the way from the tank out back. We're a bit defeated now. The new pump is in, and it's not pumping any fuel. So either the brand new pump that I got is bad, or the diaphragm that the fuel pump, the lever I should say, that's on the fuel pump that gets hit by the cam to create the pumping of the fuel, either that's in the wrong position, or like I said, the fuel pump is bad. Caddy. No, we'll get this done. We'll get it figured out. I didn't hook up the fuel line here directly to the car because I wanted to see if it was actually pumping fuel, and obviously the clear visual read that it's not. The way a mechanical fuel pump works is by using a lever that's driven by a lobe on the camshaft. That's this arm right here. When the camshaft moves the arm, it pulls a diaphragm down, which creates suction and pulls fuel into the pump. A spring then pushes the diaphragm back up, forcing fuel out of the pump and into the carburetor. And, being an idiot, it's entirely possible, when putting in the new fuel pump, that the lever is sitting where the cam lobe can't hit it. So I took the fuel pump back off, cranked the engine to change the position of the lobes on the camshaft, and put the fuel pump back in, so that hopefully our arm is in the correct orientation to be resting on the cam lobe and create the suck. Then we tried again to see if we're getting fuel. And finally, there's fuel! There's fuel! Yep. I attached the fuel line into the carb so we'd be pumping gas into it instead of the cup. Then filled up another can with gas to ensure it was sucking fuel up before we try to feed fuel from the gas tank in the back again. Let's see if it'll run. Do we want to give it a sniff?
Yeah. Go ahead.
And voila! It's running. The fuel pump is pumping. It's half a win. When the 472 ate up all the gas in the can, which didn't take that long at all, it was time to see if the new pump was muscular enough to suck fuel from the Caddy's gas tank at the back of the car. Now the fuel line's feeding from the gas tank. Return line's connected. We're no longer running off this little can. Let's see if it'll do it. And to our surprise, but a few seconds later, it died. Give it a snap. It would just keep cranking and cranking. What the hell? And no, it wasn't out of gas. And once again, it was back to only running on gas poured straight down the carb. Oh, come on.
Everything out the tank now.
Back to square one, I guess. Even with a new fuel pump, a new fuel filter, and clear lines, nothing. Unfortunately, I think I know what I gotta do next. So, today what we gotta do on the Caddy is figure out why it's not sucking fuel from the gas tank. We probably could have done a better job cleaning out the tank and such before putting it in, but I think we were kind of excited to get it going. So we painted it, threw it in, and should have made sure it wasn't full of crap. So we're gonna start with dropping the tank, blowing out the lines, blowing air through the lines. Thank you to whoever recommended that in the last Caddy video. Make sure those are clear, and then go from there. Back down comes the tank. which means first removing the fuel lines at the top of the tank.
And then I'll put the front here, or back, I should say. We didn't actually hard mount the gas tank because I had to cut the J bolts that were used as the hangers, and I haven't been able to find replacements. So if you guys know where to find replacements, comment them down below, please.
Since we added another 5 gallons of fuel to the tank in our last attempt to get it started, I'll use the transmission jack to help hold it up as I remove the tank straps, before wrestling the tank out of position and onto the ground, where I can remove the ground wire from the sending unit, which grounds to the chassis. Then I remove the 6 screws that hold the sending unit into the tank. Now, to eliminate the gas tank as the source of our issue, I'm going to put the fuel lines that go into the tank directly into our can of gas instead. If it pumps fuel, we've got something wrong with our tank.
I'm just taking that off so you can see if it pumps gas or not.
And after what felt like an eternity of cranking?
Yeah?
Yep,
What the hell?
a little bit.
What the hell does that mean, though?
Huh?
What the hell does that mean, though? That sock was the whole problem?
Now we know the pump is pumping. Let's connect the fuel line back into the carb instead of the cup, give it a sniff of starter fluid, and make sure she runs again. All right, still good. It's running off a can of gas, but through the fuel lines that run to the back. So we've eliminated the fuel pump and fuel lines as the culprit. In a few short minutes, after it's sucked up all the gas in the can down,
There it is.
time for the next step.
All right, now I've got the world's most expensive sock. That little filter here. It's $15 for this dinky little fuel, what would you call it? Fuel pickup strainer sock. And then I got a bunch of hose because what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna put the tank back in the car yet. I'm gonna keep the tank on the ground, put this line in it up to the hard line to make sure everything's working, to make sure that it's sucking the fuel up from the tank before reinstalling the tank and then realizing that it's not doing it and having to drop the tank once again. It's genius, I know.
Step 1 is to remove the old strainer sock off the fuel pickup to test and see if it could somehow be what's keeping the Caddy from running off its tank. Then I screw back on the sockless fuel sending unit to the tank, slide the tank under the Caddy, measure and cut a length of rubber hose, and run that from the fuel sending unit to the fuel line in the car that runs to the front to the fuel pump and carb. Sure enough, it freaking runs. Which, yep, means that silly little fuel condom was our culprit this whole time. So I pull what's left of the old one off and slide on the new one.
Fuel filter sock things in, battery chargers on it, fuel lines hooked up. Moment of truth. I hope this works. I'm running out of ideas. It's gonna be hard to do with one hand. Come on, baby. It's gonna need more strength. Yeah, I think it's running on its own right now. It's running off of the fuel tank, I mean.
But I discovered a slight issue. The return line was weeping all over the ground, so I connected a line on there too, and we're good.
I think this is the longest it's ever run before on its own.
Now we know that it runs off the fuel tank, I can put some RTV on the fuel sending unit and bolt it for good back onto the gas tank. Then, do quite the acrobatic moves to support the gas tank with my 30-mile legs to get it back in position in the car, and put back on the straps mounting it up.
I'm gonna call that a win for today. The Caddy's been running longer than it ever has,
and it's finally running off its own gas tank. That's huge, which means next video, we'll see if we can't have Dad take this thing for a drive. We've still got quite a list of stuff to do before we get to that point, but next video we'll be getting much, much, much closer. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and helping to support this project. This is huge, but I will see you guys in the next one. Happy motoring.